Hey everyone, Matt from Colossum Books here, which, hey, listen, 2 videos in 2 weeks. Mr. YouTube over here. It's been a while since I kind of just sat down and talked about the books I've been reading. The books have been getting me excited lately, and just what I've been up to. I kind of want to just sit here and make a little bit more of like a chatty video, a little bit more of like a loosely structured video where I just kind of ramble a little bit about the books I've been reading and, maybe convince you to give them a try, maybe tell you to avoid them a little bit and get some more recommendations for books from you guys and a little bit more interaction between you guys, because it was so great reading your comments on the video last week and it made me realize how much I missed it. Also, it's the first early day I've had. Well, it's almost 4, but these last about 2 months of work have been brutal. They've been so busy. I've been writing a manuscript and drafting a grant, which if you're in academia, you know how taxing of a task that is. But I've been finishing up a very long manuscript. It's about 20,000 words, which is for a paper is very, very long, but I'm in neuroanatomy. That's my specialization, and those papers typically tend to lean on the longer side because you just have to describe a bunch of intricacies about the brain. So that's what I've been up to. That's been the last 2 months or so of my life, working weekends and whatnot. But hey, listen, I finished up early today. Everything, my manuscript, my abstract, and a lot of the grant, they're all in my boss's hands right now. He's doing corrections, which means I get to relax for a little bit. I get to read some books, and I get to talk to y'all about the books I've been reading. And so life ain't bad, at least today. Yeah, I want to talk to you mostly about the books I've been reading lately, because I feel like if you're not following me on Instagram or Goodreads or Fable or something, you're probably a little bit out of the loop with that, which is my bad. If you want, you can follow me on Instagram. I'll put it in the description. I'm a little bit more active on there. I'm a little bit more, I post on my story more. I post my thoughts a little bit more on there, just a little bit more of a casual environment. So, it's a little bit easier to interact with me there if you choose to do so. Okay, rambling aside, let's talk about some books, huh? How about that? I'm using my cat's scratching post as a coffee stand. Stay tuned to see if that ends up being a mistake. Okay, so the first book and like my main deep read that I'm doing right now is a book I've been looking forward to reading for a long time, for a couple years, and I've been putting it off because I've had such high expectations of it. And I'm sure you all know that feeling of having really high expectations for a book to the point where you feel like maybe my expectations could never fully be or truly be met, which is a weird phenomenon with books that I should talk about after I tell you what book it is, and that's Light in August by William Faulkner. First of all, check out this cool bookmark that my girlfriend got me. It's Central Park. How cool is that? Anyway, it's a really strange feeling. I guess it's like kind of like this feeling of anxiety or this feeling of nervousness that I have blown a book out of proportion, the expectations out of proportion, and that I'm just inevitably going to be let down by it. And that was my feeling with this book. This is a book I've been wanting to read for years, and it's one of Faulkner's masterpieces. Faulkner is an interesting writer in that he's in this uncommon scenario among authors where his masterpiece is debated. There's like 4 or 5 books that could be considered his masterpiece. As I Lay Dying, Sound of Fury, Absalom, Light in August, and lately people have also been talking about Go Down Moses, which I haven't read yet. But this is his longest book in that series of masterpieces, and it's about this guy, Joe Christmas. So this book takes place in either the late 20s or early 30s, I'm not sure. It was published in 1932, about this man, Joe Christmas, who suspects that he is part black. He's part African American, and he lives in the deep south in Mississippi, and it is basically his struggle with his identity and kind of feeling otherized by basically everyone in his life, he has a very like rough upbringing. He has no attachments to his identity, I guess like his cultural identity. So he ends up being very insulated, very isolated, and very dependent on himself. I'm about halfway through, and you know, despite my expectations, I am just loving the reading experience of this book so much. It's far and away the least experimental Faulkner I've ever read, other than some of his short stories. This book in particular just feels like a regular novel. I don't know if you can hear the thunder going off right now, which is strange because it's very sunny out. But it's the most regular, I guess, for lack of a better term, novel I have read by Faulkner so far. The prose style in this book really reminds me of that final chapter in The Sound and Fury, the Dilsey chapter, where it's told in that third person's perspective. Like, yeah, there is some experimentalism in it. There is some like run-on sentences and some playing with words. I don't know if you guys can hear that thunder, but there's some playing with like syntax and word structure, and you know, there are sometimes he'll do like a sentence with or he'll do a series of words that are similar to each other but kind of evolves with the main character's mindset. Like it'll be like thinking, remembering, feeling this, you know, kind of like going through that natural cycle of emotions you go through when you like remember something that is really poignant for you. So there are some moments of experimentalism within the prose, but it is just very gorgeous writing, very well written passages, sentences with a lot of weight, and very like philosophical and thoughtful sentences too. I am loving this book so far. I definitely feel for the main character. He is so isolated and he is so like hurt to the point where he is uncomfortable with kindness because he is so used to this sequence of kindness followed by a punishment. Like he's very uncomfortable with stasis. Stasis usually is followed by some sort of, negative feeling or negative action that's happened to him. And another thing I'm mentioning or I'm noticing in this book, and again, I'm only halfway through, so there's a lot of stuff to go through. Two things. The first one being how many, underprivileged people become the victim of a mistake by someone with authority. I guess a person with authority slipping up, or I guess just being careless, and how that tumbles and kind of like snowballs into huge problems for the people who depend on them. I don't want to give any spoilers, but this is really evident with the dietitian at the orphanage that Joe Christmas is found in. His adoptive father, McEachern, who is like this man who is not obsessed, but has these Christian values so deeply ingrained in him. He doesn't question them as Christian values. He just kind of accepts them as the way of the universe. And whenever he sees someone go against them, it's almost like such a shock to him. It's almost as if you were defying the laws of the universe. Very interesting character, and his dynamics with Joe are very, very interesting as well. Oh, and the other thing I'm thinking about is, and it does kind of feel like a basic observation, but the amount of evil that can happen as a result of a person or a group of people trying to defend or impose like morality. You know, the amount of evil that can happen from a group of people who are trying to have the moral, the moral high ground. So yeah, so that's the main book I'm deep reading right now. I'm loving it so far. I'm so glad it's living up to expectations. I was very nervous about it. Again, I'm halfway through. I'll probably be done with this in like 2 weeks, and then I'll give you my updates in a video. So that's Light in August by William Faulkner. Again, my favorite author of all time, and he is yet to let me down. That's like my main, literary classic I'm working on right now. I'm actually reading way too many books right now. I'm looking at my stack right now. Holy God. I'm gonna have to speed up a little bit. But the next book I'm reading is actually a short story collection. Sorry about that. I got a phone call, but I am back. Anyway, so like I was saying, so I saw on Instagram that George Saunders is putting out a new novel. So not a short story collection. Sorry about that. But a novel, which I'm very excited about because I read, it's right here, Lincoln and the Bardo early in the year, and I absolutely loved it. Just out of like pure excitement and I guess preparation for that, I ended up getting 10th of December, which is his one of his short story collections that was a finalist for the National Book Award. So that's 10th of December by George Saunders. And I've been reading one or two short stories every week since I got it. I'm almost halfway through. After this next short story I'm about to read today, I will be halfway through. I'm reading this with one of my friends on Instagram, Thanatoid Reads. I'll put his info up somewhere. He comments on my YouTube quite a bit. So what's up, buddy? How you doing? Cool guy, has great taste in literature, and we've been kind of discussing our thoughts on the book as we go through it. But this book so far is blowing me away. It's so good. My favorite short story for years has been Barn Burning by William Faulkner, which I have here. I have this really cool old edition of the collected stories of old William Faulkner. It's one of the old Random House editions. Oh, sorry. I misspoke. One of my like favorite short stories, and maybe my favorite short story for years, has been Shingles for the Lord by William Faulkner. It's just like silly. It's very Shakespearean. Oops. I think that since I've started this, I think that maybe there might be one or two short stories in this collection that may have replaced my favorite short story of all time. Like each book story in this book, it just blows my mind. Like just how poignant and how clever and just how enjoyable and thoughtful they are. You know what I mean? Like one, just purely how enjoyable they are to read. They read fast. They are entertaining. They're written well, and they have a lot of character to them. But they're very thoughtful, and they have really given me a lot of food for thought and a lot of things to discuss in our buddy read. The short story Escape from Spiderhead in particular, which is like probably the most famous short story from this collection, is legitimately a masterpiece. It is so good, and I want to discuss it, but it's so short, and I do think you should read it because it's like 20 pages, but like it made me like tear up at the end, and it touches on so many things like corporate greed, I guess like human like fallibility, but also like oneness and empathy and acceptance as you and your fellow humans as a force of nature altogether. I can't really talk more about it. I really hope you read it. Also, the short story Styx it's a page and a half, and it is so poignant, and it's so layered for a page and a half, and even the name Styx is weighty. Once you read it, you'll know. And this interaction between this family and this like desperate father, you know, or like this, I guess, this very authoritarian father, and how as he starts to lose things throughout his life, he wants to apologize, but at the end it's too late, and the apology falls flat to a point that the kids can't even understand it. Oh, it's so good. But my favorite thing about George Saunders' writing is it is just soaked with empathy. It just is draped with empathy. Like his love for humans and his hope for humans. But it's almost like hope that he knows is pointless, that he knows is doomed to fail, but he can't help but hope and empathize anyway, you know, and that's what I really love about it. That's such a familiar feeling, isn't it? Wanting to be hopeful, wanting to be optimistic, but maybe in the back of your head knowing that it's doomed, you know, but that shouldn't stop your push to be empathetic and kind anyway, you know. I'm going on a tangent here, but I gotta say that this is really an incredible work. Again, I'm only halfway through. I heard the next book, the next story, and this is a complete banger, so I can't wait. So yeah, that's the second book I'm reading right now, 10th of December by George Saunders. I can't wait. I can't wait to read more George Saunders. He might be my favorite working author right now. He might be. Okay, so I told you in the last video that I really I kind of took a step into poetry, and I finally found some poetry I really connected with and really loved, which was Ariel by Sylvia Plath. And thank you in the comments for correcting my pronunciation of Ariel and not Ariel. I don't know why I thought it was Ariel. Maybe I just thought that was like a more poetic sounding name, but Ariel by Sylvia Plath. Once I finished it, I was like, I want to continue my poetry streak. I want to continue, you know, having some poems or some poetry that I can kind of open up and explore every once in a while. And I bought this book a while ago, and I've talked about it on this channel before, and I've been reading it very, very slowly. And there's a couple of reasons for that, but I decided to jump back into this EE Cummings collection. I'm a little bit less than halfway through. Like I said, I'm reading it very slowly, and I am wondering whether or not I should just give up on this one. I think that what really worked for me about Ariel was that aesthetically, the poems drew me in, and then I was ready to, once I was aesthetically connected to it, I was willing to do the extra work of analyzing the poem. This one, it's just maybe a little bit too abstract for me, or like the average poem in here is maybe a little too abstract to fully draw me in. But it's frustrating because I will read through these and sometimes I'll be like, okay, whatever. Sometimes I will be completely mind blown by their concept and their beauty. And what I can say is what I really admire about EE Cummings is that the structure of his poems are they're very intentional. It's not like he just kind of like randomly threw, because if you look, they're very, I can show you, they're very interesting looking, right? But it's on purpose. It's not like, oh, this is kind of fun for fun's sake, like he's doing it to tell a story. Just sometimes I am not totally willing to do the work to get the story. And again, that's on me, but I think maybe I need to become a little bit more familiar with poetry, like more classic poetry, before I can really fully connect with this. That's my intuition. However, there is a poem in here called Mr. Smith. I think it's one of his more famous poems. That's like, it reminds me of like an Arno Schmidt novel. Not that I've read Arno Schmidt, but you know, like with Bottom's Dream, you have like the three columns, like the middle one being the main narrative, and then like on the left and the right of like, it's your thoughts and what's going on around you. There's a poem in here called Mr. Smith, which is it really reminds me of that, where the left column here is the narrative of what Mr. Smith is doing, which is writing a letter, by the way. The middle column is the physical description of his handwriting, and the right column is the contents of the letter. So it reminds me of like Arno Schmidt in kind of a cool way. So stuff like that is really awesome and it's really cool, but a lot of it goes over my head, honestly. A lot of it I am unsure what to attribute to just him being like a really experimental writer, and how much of it is just like I guess within the normal standard deviations of poetic license, I guess. What I'm really saying here is I think I have to read more poetry before I can fully connect with this. But I'll keep trying, and if I don't connect with it in the next couple 20-30 pages, I'll pick up something maybe a little bit more straightforward. Okay, I'm gonna speed through the next couple because I've been recording for much longer than I expected. I mean, it also just kind of speaks to just how much I've been enjoying reading lately. Because work has been so busy, it's been a little bit of an escape to read. It kind of puts my brain into like another newer place or a different place than the stressful area of work. Okay, so this next book I just started earlier in the week. So when I finished Wind Up Bird Chronicle, which you guys know in my last video, I loved that book. I thought it was so good and the plot was super engaging and it really drew me in. And my kind of tradition or my ritual with that book is I'd get through work, I'd come home, I'd read my main deep read book, which at the time was Crime and Punishment. I'd go to the gym, eat dinner, hang out with my girlfriend, and then by the end of the night, before I went to bed, I'd get in bed, I'd turn on my little reading lamp, and I would read 20 to 30 pages of Wind Up Bird Chronicle. And it was such a cool way to like lull me to sleep. I felt so much more relaxed at the end of the day, even though there's some horrifying scenes in that book. But it gave me something to think about and chew on as I drifted off to sleep that wasn't work or things I was anxious about, you know? And so I kind of wanted to continue that tradition. I actually have 2 books I'm doing that with right now, but the first one I started this week is this book, Lies in Sorcery by Elisa Morante, who is an Italian writer. And what drew me to this book, look, it's a bit of a brick. It's almost 800 pages. What drew me to this book is that it is, apparently it was Elena Ferrante's one of her main inspirations. She says on the back, I discovered that an entirely female story, entirely woman's desires and ideas and feelings could be compelling yet still have great literary value. So I was interested to look at this book that kind of, I guess, inspired one of the great contemporary writers. And I wanted something that was maybe a little bit more of just like a driving, quiet narrative. And so I picked this up at the bookstore near me. I read the introduction and I was sold. What I didn't expect was it is a little bit more of a difficult read than I expected. Like the writing in this book is so dense with thought and meaning. So I end up reading it a little bit harder than I expected, which is fine. I am enjoying it. But there are some really awesome passages in here. It's this woman who she feels herself that she's just real fucked up. She's real she just feels like she's really like a messed up individual. And in order to tell you, the reader, she talks to you in particular, like the reader, very directly, to tell you the story of how she got this way, she has to tell you her whole story of her whole lineage, basically. And that's what this is. It's kind of like a family history, but it's through like the eyes of an unreliable narrator. Yeah, it's kind of her reflections. She's saying she's being guided by her ancestors to write this book down. There's some really wicked passages in here. Like, listen to this. The vast majority of my time in this apartment was spent entombed in this small room. She lives in this really tiny bedroom that she moved in with her guardian after her mother passed. Like a contemplative monk, I kept company with my books and myself. I was estranged from all that went on in the nearby rooms. I had no social life or entertainment of any sort, and I was immune to the frivolities indulged in even by the most modest girls. You mustn't, however, conclude that this lonely room was the refuge of a saint. No, rather it was the refuge of a witch. So sick. So I'm really just beginning this, but you know, the character is already the main narrator already has so much character, and you can already see this deep seed of like recluseness and like, not recklessness, but like being a recluse, being a hermit, and being so estranged and separate from other people, being so insular. And I love books like that, where it's just this main character deep in their own head. And then we get this whole lineage story of how she became who she became. So that's this book. I'm only like 30 or 40 pages in. I am deeply enjoying it so far, and it's been a good nighttime read. The other book that I am reading for the time being at night is actually, like, for the 5th time, Lord of the Rings. I got this really cool 1-volume edition. I think this is the 50th anniversary edition. Coco is here, by the way. Hey, bub, come here. Oh, look at my boy. It's been a while since I gave you guys an update on Coco. Here he is. Hi, Coco. No? Okay. He doesn't want to be held right now. Coco, look. What's that? But yeah, for like the 5th time, I'm reading Lord of the Rings in this 1-volume edition. I am splitting this in between reading it a couple pages in the evening and listening to the audiobook actually for the first time. Not a huge audiobook guy. I end up getting distracted, but since I've read this so many times, I feel like it's okay to listen to an audiobook about it if I get distracted, because I've heard it all before. But yeah, I mean, I love Lord of the Rings. I have a Lord of the Rings tattoo, which I recently got. You know, this book just means so much to me. It has made so much of who I am as a person. And, you know, it's really what this is. This is truly and unabashedly a comfort read for me. Like, reading this is like talking to an old friend. That's so corny. I'm sorry. Reading this is like being home. It's like being comfortable. And it's just my favorite story ever, and it's easy to read, pick up whenever, and I just love it so much. And so when life, like right now, life is busy, it's stressful, and it seems to be going faster than I can get my footing, this book really slows me down and brings me to a nice, comfortable place. So can't thank this book enough for what it is. And there's my cat. Anyway, that's everything I wanted to talk about today. Thanks so much for watching. He's gonna do something stupid. Please let me know your thoughts. If you have any recommendations for me, please let me know. The next video is gonna be the TBR, my TBR for the rest of the year. So that should be fun to talk about. Sorry, I'm getting distracted because Coco's about to do something silly. But again, love you guys. Thanks so much for watching. Let me know if you've read any of these books, if you like them, if you have differing opinions. I really enjoyed in the last video the comments about those of you who agreed with me and disagreed with me about Crime and Punishment, but I thought that the comments were very thoughtful and I appreciated that. So that's it for me today. Say bye, Coco. Coco says goodbye. Goodbye. Isn't he so handsome? Look how handsome he is. Okay, here you go, bud. I'll talk to you guys later. Peace.